What if someone told you your life story? What if it didn't have a happy ending? What would you do? Well, we're going to talk about how V does it, and how I think it's what makes Cyberpunk so special. Like most RPGs, there's a prologue where you learn the basics and all that, yada yada yada. But I want to talk about what happens after the game really starts.
Oh.
I'll fucking
No
kill
blaze
you!
of glory for me.
Cyberpunk begins when V dies. You wake up to the cheerful news that Victor was able to pull the bullet out of your head, and well, obviously you're alive. Unfortunately, that's where all the good news ends, as the first thing Vic tells you is that you're dying. It's going to be soon. It's going to be painful, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. This is the game looking you in the eye and telling you that it isn't going to be a happy story. And that's where it got me. Because every game has impossible challenges and insurmountable odds only for you to get away with that 1 in a million shot and have it all work out. But this is one of those stories. It's been said in more than one piece of media that hope is a dangerous thing. And I never felt that harder than trying to save V's life in Night City. I've sat and thought long and hard about what I want to talk about in this video, how I want to discuss this game that I've come to love so much. And what I've boiled it down to is 3 topics that I want to touch on that I think when you combine them, go to show the roller coaster of emotion that V will go through on the way to his end. I want to cover the crumbs of hope that the main story will feed you along the way, the unsatisfying endings to side missions that will bring you back down to reality, sometimes downright painfully, and the small moments of joy you'll find along the way.
Fucking hell. You still don't see it, but you will one day.
I'm going to start with the main story and how in retrospect it tried to tell you all along, but we're going to go through it pretty briefly because we don't have all day and I have side missions to talk about. You'll start out with 2 main leads, Anders Hellman, who invented the relic that's currently killing you, thanks, and Evelyn, who gave you the job in the first place. Again, thanks. Evelyn is the darker story, as you'll track down what happened to her after she went into hiding. You'll be led down a dark path as her fate was she was attacked, nearly killed, used, and then sold off as so much trash. When you finally do find her and bring her home, you'll never hear another word from her as she takes her own life the moment she's left alone. With only a memory of her meeting with the Voodoo Boys pulled from her memory implants to go on, and a broken Judy left to pick up the pieces. It's not much, but you're given this little light in the dark in the form of a breadcrumb as you'll try to find an angle with the Voodoo Boys, but it's slim at best. So what about Hellman? Well, you'll go on a hell of a ride alongside Pan Am Palmer on the quest to knock him out of the sky so you can have a nice little chat with him, only for him to tell you that he doesn't know how to help you. But again, you're given this breadcrumb as he gives you the blueprints to the relic so that maybe someone else can help you in the future. So you've got a lead that'll take you to the most closed-off king around, but there's a chance. And to be honest, this is proceeding like most video games, as you chase down lead after lead doing what's presented as impossible again and again. The Voodoo Boys are no different, as after a near-death experience, you'll follow Brigitte through the Black Wall to find an old friend of Johnny's in Alt Cunningham, who tells you that if you can somehow find a way into Mikoshi, she can separate you from Johnny and save your life. So finally, you have a hope that you can make it through, or so you think. I'm going to skip a lot about how you get to the ending because it's irrelevant and why add unneeded spoilers, because what's important is what happens after you fight your way to the end. Whether you cut a deal with Arasaka, let Johnny take control and get you there alongside Rogue, call on Pan Am and the Aldecaldos, or walk into hell alone to pull yourself out of the fire, you're going to be confronted with the same painful truth. You're out of time. The relic has done too much damage. Whether you give control to Johnny to live again, or you live out your last few months in pain, V is going to die, and he's going to die soon. Remember that scene in The Dark Knight Rises when Bane said you cannot know despair without hope? Well, that's how this moment feels. You've overcome so much. A bullet to the head, the loss of your friend Jackie, a Johnny Silverhand who once wanted to kill you, now fighting to save your life, finding the relic's creator in Hellman, finding the ones who wanted it stolen in the first place in the Voodoo Boys and Brigitte, finding Alt behind the Black Wall, somewhere few people have ever even thought about going, let alone succeeded. Getting into Arasaka Tower, all of it. And the best you can hope for is a few months of pain before your body rejects you and you die. So the main story is depressing. What else is there to this game to make it worth the painful destination that I haven't sold it very well, I don't think. It's the ups and downs along the way in search of a few moments of happiness, or maybe at the very least a little peace. On top of your own personal ending, there's also several side missions that just never really feel like they have a good ending, regardless of how it plays out. But a big part of why is you're not making the decisions because it's not your story. You're just along for the ride. A couple examples are Claire and the quest started by Bill Jablonski, known as Sinnerman, where you will be following Joshua Stevenson. They both left me unsatisfied for different reasons, but I should warn you, our second entry is pretty disturbing and has been tough for me even on a fourth playthrough. So caution is heavily advised, although it is one of my favorite missions in the game at this point. To start out with, we have a pretty simple one from Claire, the bartender at the Afterlife, who will contact you about being her driver for a series of races throughout the city, which seems simple enough, and for the most part, it is. It doesn't really get interesting until the end of the third qualifying race, which aligns you for a shot at the title in the championship race. She reveals that her husband was murdered during one of the races, and his whole job has been using you as a means to get to him, and if you agree, you'll abandon the race to chase after her rival Samson rather than the finish line. The part that gets me is that something is wrong about this whole thing is she becomes unhinged at the mere sight of Samson. Even before the race and during the confrontation, if you choose to hear him out, Samson seems to make a pretty solid case as to his half of the story, but there's no reasoning with Claire. Doesn't matter what you say or what you do, she's out for blood, and unless you kill her, she'll get it. And then you get this ending with an unsatisfied Claire simply seeming to wash her hands of everything, giving you her beast and walking away. This is my milder example, but man, I'm just not super hot on this quest every time. At least from my perspective, I walked away feeling used and possibly complicit in an unjustified murder. It might be the only murder I didn't let sit well with me over the course of the game. Sinnerman is... How do I describe the Sinnerman questline? It's wrong, man. It just feels wrong. You'll end up spending your day with a man who murdered innocent people without reason, is now seeking redemption in the form of being crucified on film in service of his newly found Christian rebirth. It's an odd journey as we go from working for the loved ones of one of his victims to coming along as we visit the family of another one of his victims. And as with a lot of other side missions here, it's not your story, so you're more or less along for the ride as you watch his journey. You'll meet two people here at this house. The first is the sister of one of the men he killed, named Zulenka. It was her who reached out to Joshua and offered forgiveness while guiding him to finding religion while in prison. I wouldn't say that they're friends, per se, but she does seem to have genuinely found a way to have forgiven him, although it's still clearly painful for her as you can see her discomfort as she sits at the table with him. Her mother, on the other hand, isn't really on the same page as her daughter. This whole ride only takes about 20 minutes, but you'll get wrapped up in not only a murder case, but religious beliefs, your thoughts on forgiveness, corporate exploitation, maybe even the justice system in general, all kinds of shit, but at the very least, you get your moment to sit down with Johnny and discuss your end of your beliefs on the subject. You'd think that after all this, it couldn't get any odder here, but here we go, as you're called in to talk to Joshua, who's freaking out on his big day. After asking you to pray with him, which is oddly touching, he'll ask that you swing the hammer in a scene I struggle to sit through, but choose to participate in every time.
I am so afraid. Will you pray with me? A prayer of your choice.
Fine. Sure. Lord, through your divine wisdom and guidance, you bestow good fortune. I pray you do so this day, upon Joshua, upon me. Joshua?
This is it. My time has come. I want you to walk with me. I'd like you to wield the hammer. Nail me to the cross. Please.
All right, Joshua. I'll do it.
Thank you.
Let's do this. You're gonna have to say some lines. A few. We'll put them up on the prompter for you.
Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and save us.
Do you not fear God? You stand condemned under the same sentence.
Truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise.
I'll be honest, it's a tough fucking few minutes, and I don't look down on anyone who wasn't able to get through it. But it's clearly something that someone had a ton of passion on at CDPR, and I'm guessing fought quite a few battles to see it into the game. Now, this is what I originally wrote for my script, because I didn't actually have any more information about this. But at 2 in the morning, with my curiosity, I tweeted at CD Projekt Rec, and I got a response from Marcin Blacha? Blesha? I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm very sorry.
Blatchamp.
But his Twitter bio has him as story director of CD Projekt Red. So I asked him, I'm mostly curious what the inspiration was. He said it started with a call for pitching quest ideas. A reformed criminal who wants to record a crucifixion brain dance was one of them. We were looking for ideas that tell the world this one did it. Then we worked on the idea again and again, and we finished with this quest. I thanked him for his reply, and he was glad that we liked it. He said, for us, side stories are always an opportunity to experiment a bit and to focus on building up something different in the form of a short story. I thought this was very interesting. But I don't really want to talk about it anymore, but I think I've made my point with missions that just leave you feeling unsatisfied and not in control. Because you're not. So I've discussed the fact that some of the most unpleasant moments in this game are what I think elevate it so high. But what about the highs? What are the best parts of this game? Surely I don't expect you to play it for sad endings and quiet executions, right? Well, let's hit on some of my favorite moments in the game. Ones that do actually make me smile every time. God, I was searching through my archives of recordings to try to find moments that I could point to demonstrate why I love the game so much, and I found several. But it hit me that there's no aha moment in this game, except for maybe some self-reflection after you watch the credits roll. It was the experience as a whole that I fell in love with. The roller coaster of highs and lows that is V fighting for his life, gaining ground, just have it yanked out from under him. His volatile relationship with Johnny as you fight over control of your body, only to find a friendship in your shared struggle. I love Panam and Judy and Rivers and Carrie and Rogue and Mama Wells and Pepe and Victor and Misty, hell, even Delamain. I love the story we get to be a part of and the ones we just get to witness. I love that as you gain renown and respect, people will start to recognize you with merely your name being enough to avoid fights in some cases. I'm not even sure if you can say that this game is more than the sum of its parts, because when you take the storytelling, the characters, the gameplay, the world, and the music, my god, the fucking soundtrack in this game couldn't be better if M did a verse on God's first mixtape. Fuck me, I love this game. Hundreds of hours in, I'm still riding my bike across the map just listening to 98.7 Body Heat because I find it enjoyable. And guys, I'm a fast travel kind of person. So come on, let's end this shit on a high, shall we? So let's hit on a couple of my favorite high points in the game before we get to my favorite quiet moments. Pulling a heist with Pan Am and the Aldecaldo veterans has to be one of the best highs in the game. And while sitting around the campfire the night before is actually my favorite part, there's something to be said for using a train as a battering ram to rob a convoy with all your pals, proving cowboy shit never goes out of style. Not to mention that you'll be stealing a tank that you'll tear up a rival gang with, among other things depending on the gender and choices you may have made throughout the game. You'll be fucking in the tank. Sorry, what? Going diving with Judy on a tour through her hometown also probably qualifies as a quiet moment after the Cloud's takeover, but fuck it, I'm counting it as a high because it's just such a joyful level. I mean, come on, look at Judy's smile. How could that not be a high? At the opposite end of the spectrum, we can literally get high in a hidden little treat where we get the roller coaster in Pacifica running and take a joyride with Johnny in what is simply a pointless and fun moment. I'm kind of cheating with this one, but it happened often enough that I think it counts, and I mean, come on, just try to watch this and not laugh.
You said you were looking for work.
And I found it!
No, this isn't work. Have you ever thought what would happen to us if we lost you? Lost all our money? Either you change Cesar, or I change the locks.
You Cesar. I'm here for my fight.
Yeah, that's me. Toughest hijo de puta in the Glen.
Mm-hmm.
I asked because the last guy I fought tried to surprise me with long spurs. Anyway, you ready to start?
Are you?
What's your problem?
And of course, how could I not top it off with literally stepping into the shoes of Johnny Silverhand to play one last gig with Samurai? Alright, so there are a couple of my favorite "this is so fucking cool" moments in the game, but what about my actual favorite moments in the game? The moments of peace you earn after slamming through jobs. Well, I don't want to bury you, so I'll just share a few, but damn if these aren't what make the game so damn special. The Aldecaldos really have a huge market share in these, but they deserve to be at least talked about. I'll only subject you to my favorite, though. The ones that come to mind are the night before the raid on Arasaka at the camp, where you'll shoot and get advice from a cowboy.
The trick is to hear silence in your mind at the bang.
Chat with Mitch about camp politics, listen to a soothing melody played by Scooter, or sit around the campfire just enjoying the family you've been adopted into. All before joining Pan Am to look down upon the whole scene, breathing it in from above. They also have the night before the Basculus convoy raid that I mentioned earlier, where you'll sit around talking to the veterans and looking at the stars. But my favorite has to be after you rescue Saul, and you find yourself huddled in a vacant house waiting out the haboob in your very own Hotel California.
On behalf of the staff of the Independent California Motel, I wish you all sweet dreams.
While the Nomads may have mastered sitting around the fire, they don't hold a total monopoly at quiet reflection moments. It takes time to find some common ground with Johnny, but once you do, you can get moments like this, where he shows an unexpected vulnerability.
No, I don't know. A marker. Something. Anything. A bit. But let's say it was my real grave. What would you write? Here lies Johnny Silverhand.
The guy who saved my life.
V, you don't know how much I want that to be true. Listen, I realize I fucked up a lot of things. Either let down or used every last person who gave me their trust. Blind, selfish bastard that I was. But I've managed one thing for now. Not to fuck this up. What we have.
But my favorite moment in the game has to belong to Kira Uridine, as you sail along on the Seamurai. Admittedly, I think a lot of how much I like this moment comes with how late it usually comes in the game for me. It's usually one of the last things I actually do. But it's nice to just sit back and listen to a song after dozens of hours running around Night City having near-death experiences.
Well, starting tomorrow.
So there it is, guys. It's the highs and lows of Cyberpunk 2077. I hope if you did enjoy the game, then this was a nice little moment for you to sit back and watch all your favorite moments. I hope if you haven't played the game that maybe this was enough to make you want to go and play it yourself. I promise I've left out a lot. And if you hated the game, I hope maybe you can understand why some of us love it. As usual, I don't know how to end any of these things, and I've got to cut it short here or this video is going to end up being 3 hours long. So, I'll leave you with this. This is Purple signing off. Have a good night, and always remember to smile.
Goodbye, V. And never stop fighting.